The plot revolves around Queen Himiko, who ruled her empire using dark arts. With a single touch, she caused death and devastation. Over time, her generals managed to capture her and move her to a completely uninhabitable island. Meanwhile, Lord Richard Croft found an ancient map that showed Himiko's location and committed to finding her, even if it meant leaving his daughter Lara behind. In London, Lara trains in mixed martial arts to prepare for a fight. During the confrontation, her opponent overpowers her, subjects her to a chokehold, and although Lara doesn't want to accept her defeat, resisting until the end, she ends up giving in and tapping the ground as a sign of surrender. After working as a bicycle courier, Lara goes to a meeting point where she hears about a fox hunt in which several cyclists chase one who leaves a trail of paint. The condition was to catch the fox before the paint ran out to win a cash prize. Without a second thought, Lara volunteers to be the victim. On the day of the hunt, Lara races through the streets with a bucket of paint dripping from the wheels of her bicycle. She navigates between busy streets and avenues, making it difficult for her rivals to chase her. At one point, she manages to lose her pursuers and gets on a truck, leaving the bikers confused as the trail of paint stops. Then she gets off the vehicle and enters a park to lose sight of them. Later, she walks down a quiet street, and at that moment notices the presence of a man in a suit who reminds her of her father. Lost in her thoughts, she accidentally crashes into a police car. At the station, Anna Miller, Richard's business associate, frees Lara from the police. Lara looks at her with a cold expression, but thanks her for the help. Anna insists that she doesn't need the money from the hunt, as she has her father's inheritance, but Lara refuses to accept it. It has been 7 years since Richard disappeared, so Anna asks her to sign papers to officially declare him dead. If she doesn't complete this process, his assets will be sold. That night, Lara reminisces about moments with her father. Before leaving, Richard left her a jade necklace that belonged to her mother, telling her that holding it while thinking of someone you miss allows that person to know you're thinking of them. The next day, Lara visits the Croft Holdings headquarters to sign the papers to declare Richard's death. Before doing so, a lawyer presents her with a Japanese puzzle called a karakuri. Lara takes it, solves it, and reveals a hidden letter along with a key. The letter mentions the first letter of Richard's final destination, J, and she quickly understands its meaning. She returns to the Croft mansion and heads to her father's tomb, pressing the letter R on a hidden lock behind the tombstone, where she finds a key to the puzzle. This activates the opening of a secret door, revealing Richard's office. She finds falsified passports and an old video camera with a recorded message. In it, Richard explains that after his wife's death, he looked for clues about a legendary kingdom to be able to see her again. He also asks her to burn all his research related to the Himiko project, because if it fell into the wrong hands, it would be catastrophic. Lara discovers a box labeled Himiko, but instead of destroying it, she decides to investigate its contents and learns about the legend of Himiko and the lost island of Yamatai. She also discovers that Richard traveled to Yamatai and gets the name of the ship captain who should have taken him there. Since Lara didn't sign the papers and hasn't yet received her inheritance, she decides to use her jade necklace to finance the trip. Days later, she arrives in Hong Kong in search of the captain. A group of young people tries to help her, but steals her backpack. Lara follows them on different boats, jumping from one to another as they quickly move away aboard a vessel. She navigates through the bustling market, and after a chase, she manages to recover her bag and confront one of the thieves, who threatens her with a knife. Fearlessly, Lara hangs from a hook to cross and reach the boat called the Endurance, where the criminals corner her. Then Lurin, the captain, appears and fires a warning shot. He also forces Lara to withdraw, but he ends up passed out from drunkenness. Upon waking up, Lara sprays him with water to wake him up and asks him about her father. She shows him the message she found in Richard's office, and Lou points out that his father's name matches, suggesting that Richard tried to contact him. However, he states that his own father is also missing and suspects that both embarked on the same journey to Yamatai. Lara shares Richard's diary with Lou, which contains a code she assumes are coordinates. Lou explains that these codes resemble clock hands. Thanks to that clue, Lara determines the exact location of the island in the dangerous Sea of Demons. Furthermore, she confesses that she doesn't care much about what happened to her father, although when she sees an old photo with Richard, she recognizes him as someone important. Intrigued, Lara discovers that he lost in a gambling game the night before, so she offers him money to help her on the mission. During the journey to Yamatai, Lara continues reading Richard's diary and finds an ancient puzzle. There, she discovers that Himiko is contained behind an elaborate door, and that Richard managed to open it. She recounts that in the tomb there are dangerous obstacles: the abyss of souls, the faces of Himiko, and her army of maidens, before reaching her resting place. Richard, however, was watched by the Order of Trinity, a militant group that wanted to dominate the supernatural to control humanity. They feared Himiko would be used as a weapon. One night, Lara wakes up in the middle of a fierce storm with Lou, who struggles to maintain control of the ship. The vessel is close to Yamatai, but the gigantic waves cause the boat to crash against rocks. Lou tells her to evacuate, but she runs out to look for her diary and abandons the puzzle in the process. The ship crashes and Lara jumps into the sea, losing sight of Lou in the waves. Upon reaching land, she sees others on the island and suddenly someone attacks her, leaving her unconscious. The next day, she wakes up in a tent and meets Matthias Vogel, who explains that he has daughters in his country and cannot return until he finishes his mission on the island. Lara checks her bag, and Vogel shows her Richard's diary. He is grateful for the object, as it reveals that Richard refused to cooperate with them and was therefore killed. At that moment, Lara realizes that her father has really died. When she goes outside, she sees the employees using explosives to destroy a mountain, and armed bodyguards tie Lara's hands, while she notices that Lou has also been captured and forced to work for them. Vogel announces that they will move the camp, and on the way, Lou reveals that many of those workers are shipwrecked fishermen or victims of human trafficking. Lara accuses Vogel of having killed Richard, and Lou adds that he also saw him kill his own father. Surprised, Lara apologizes for having brought Lou to the island. Thanks to Richard's diary, Vogel discovers the entrance to Himiko's tomb, and the prisoners, including Lara and Lou, begin to open it. When an old man collapses, a guard orders him to keep working. Lara and Lou defend the old man, but Vogel shoots and kills one of the workers. Enraged, Lou hits a guard with a shovel, allowing Lara to escape. In the jungle, Lou tries to follow her, but Vogel shoots him in the arm. Lara reaches a cliff and, using a fallen log, manages to cross to the other side, although she falls into the water when shots are fired. She struggles to get out of the river, and next to a waterfall, she grabs onto a part of a broken plane. She manages to climb to the top, but the weight wears her down and it begins to break. She runs towards the fuselage just before the entire structure falls, getting trapped between two cliffs. She finds an old parachute, opens it, and makes a forced landing in the middle of the jungle, where she is stabbed by a branch and screams in pain. That night, she hears noises in the cave, where she takes refuge and comes out of hiding. Suddenly, Rocket, one of Vogel's men, arrives and tries to catch her. She bites his arm to make him let go. She fights with him, and although he overpowers her, she manages to hit him with a rock and strangle him by submerging his head in a puddle. She realizes that she has killed someone and gets very scared. A figure appears from the darkness and chases her. It's Richard. She goes up to his camp and confronts him, but Richard doesn't want to accept that she is real. Through tears, she asks him to believe her, and Richard heals her and promises he won't leave her. The next day, the workers discover the entrance to the tomb, and Vogel calls his superiors. Meanwhile, Lara wakes up and sees Richard cleaning himself. When she helps him lie down, Richard confesses that leaving her was the hardest thing, but Himiko didn't allow him to leave the island. He reveals that Vogel works for the Trinity organization and that they must stop him before he opens Himiko's tomb. He trusts that Lara burned the research, but she confesses that she didn't. Richard panics, but Lara argues that she used that information to locate him. Richard regrets having given her the diary, but she insists that it doesn't matter, as Himiko's curse could be unleashed on the world if they open the tomb. He asks her to use Vogel's satellite phone to get off the island, reminding her that you should never give up. However, Richard says he was a different man back then. Determined, Lara takes a bow and arrows and enters Vogel's camp. She tries to sneak into his tent, but he arrives just in time, and she hides. He receives a message on Vogel's phone without being able to decipher the code, and she silently leaves to get Lou's attention, shooting a guard who was watching the workers and recovering his phone to escape. Then she sees Richard approaching, but Vogel corners him and demands that he open the tomb to return to his family. Richard replies that if they open it, his family will have no life. When he doesn't get what he wants, Vogel orders his guard to execute Richard. She shoots him in the midst of the tension. She points an arrow at Vogel, who has her father at gunpoint. He asks her to open the coffin to save his family, but she decides that she will not let her father die after so long. She offers to open the tomb herself. Knowing how she solved a puzzle in Richard's office, she places the wheels at the entrance. Suddenly, the chamber collapses and uncovers a pit that leads to the abyss of souls. A gust of air makes Richard think that Himiko is still alive, but Vogel clarifies that it is a simple change in pressure. Lara steps on a trigger, spears emerge and kill a guard. They advance up the stairs, flanked by skulls and faces of Himiko and her maidens. Another guard activates a trigger. Circular doors close and the ground begins to give way. Lara deduces that the prayer wheels are keys. By joining the yellow and blue, she creates the green, a symbol of life, and opens the door. They reach a ruined pagoda with the tombs of the maidens. Richard tries to stop Vogel, but he opens the sarcophagus. Himiko's body instantly decomposes. Lara observes that the paintings show her as a protector, not a monster. A guard who touches the corpse gets infected, his flesh rots, and he shoots, killing another. Bog finishes him off and cuts off one of Himiko's fingers for Trinity. Lara attacks the last guard with her pickaxe. Richard, injured, stops another infected person, but the cave becomes chaotic. Lara takes refuge in a tomb. The floor sinks and she falls to another chamber. There she steps on another trigger, and spiked logs crush the guard who was chasing her. She returns to the sarcophagus. Richard, already infected, asks her to stop Vogel while he prepares the explosion to seal the virus. Tearfully, Lara says goodbye. On the stairs above the abyss, she confronts Vogel, who holds her by the neck. She frees herself, hits him, drops the ladder, and he is left hanging from a pickaxe. Then she infects him with Himiko's finger and throws him into the abyss. Everything collapses. Lara drives the pickaxe into the wall and flees through a tunnel. Lou helps her out, but a Trinity boat forces them aboard. Back in London, Lara legally affirms Richard's death. Anna states that Croft Holdings passes into her name. Lara gives up control but reviews the finances and discovers that the company owns Patna, the firm that supplied Vogel's camp. She suspects that Anna works for Trinity. She returns to her father's secret office, reviews his research, and before leaving, she recovers her jade necklace from the pawn shop and buys 2 pistols, ready to face the organization.